My name's Craig Williams, and I'd like to say that if the history of the New York State canal system was your house, okay, and that house caught on fire, and you're running in to get the most precious artifact, this is the artifact that I would run into to go get. And the reason I say that is because this was the first vessel specifically designed for this third generation of the Erie Canal. This boat was built in 1921. That canal was completed in 1918. The reason for the discrepancy in the dates I'll tell you about in just a second. So it's the first one, it's the very first one specifically designed for the new enlarged dimensions of the barge canal. Icing on the cake is that it was the last commercial hauler on the canal system. It was in use in central New York up until 1994. Remember I mentioned the 1918-1921 date, that the boat was built in 1921, or its first maiden voyage right through here was in 1921. The reason there's those few dates, think about it for a minute. In 1918, what else was going on in the United States? We were in the midst of the First World War. The canal had just been completed. In fact, they rushed through completion at a time when the federal government takes possession from the state of the canal system. The federal government took possession of all of the transportation systems in the country at the time to help support the war effort, to make sure that material could reach from the inland to the seaboard and then to Europe. So in 1918 they finished the canal and it's taken over by the federal government. There's always the suspicion that the folks who ran the canal for the federal government didn't want to do the canal any favor. They were railroad people. They were hired from the railroad industry, and there's always the thought that the canal is being kind of a threat to the railroads. They wanted to make sure that it never got a good start. Whatever the reason, the federal government hung on to ownership of the canal or operating management of the canal well after the end of the First World War. They didn't give it up until 1921. There is that date. So in 1921, the canals returned to New York State operation, and if you were a commercial shipper, that would be the time when you'd want to begin your investment in the waterway. So no surprise, Julius Barnes, a great shipping magnate and grain dealer out in the Midwest in New York City, sponsored the construction of the day Peckinpaugh, then called the Inner Waterways Line 101, sponsors the construction of this boat, and then 4 others just like it. And they're the forerunners of what was probably a fleet of 100 motor ships that would go up and down the canal.